There are many questions facing the printed word in this digital age. Is there a future for the printed word? The magazine industry is facing the biggest change in its history, and folks are looking for answers. The future of the printed word in a digital age was the theme of the ACT2 Experience that was hosted by the Magazine Innovation Center at the University of Mississippi. We tried to answer the question about what's the future of magazines and the printed word as a whole in this digital age. Experts from all sorts of the media world came to Oxford, Mississippi and offered their opinions and advice about the future of the magazine world. We've asked those experts 3 questions. Question 1. In your opinion, what do you think is the future of the printed word in a digital age?
I think the printed word has a great future in the digital age. I think there's always going to be people who love to read things in print. They love the portability of it. They love to be able to carry something around. They love the way the photographs look, particularly if it's a magazine that has a lot of care put into it and it's really beautifully designed. So I think there's a great future for the printed word in the digital age. The digital age part of it is about all the other things that you can build around that printed word, all the other things that you can do to augment what you're putting into print. So I think there's a great future there.
The future of the printed word is exactly as it is now. Nothing has changed. It's just as valuable, it's just as pertinent, just as meaningful, and actually an important fact is just as lucrative as it was. The problem is, as we move forward, there'll be less print than there was. What's left will be choice, will be quality, will be a luxury that people should be willing to pay for, and that's the thing. We have to change our paradigm and have people pay for print, which they're unaccustomed to paying for its real worth and its real value. We've been subsidized by advertising for way too long. As we move into the future, that relationship with advertising will change somewhat, but the value of print stays as strong as it ever was, and if we're smart, it'll get better than it ever was. We just need to pay for the right editors to move forward.
Well, the printed world and the digital world, they remind me of a boy and a girl who like each other, who love each other as a matter of fact, but no one of the two wants to be the first one to confess it. So they kind of fight. They fight, but they're going out together and eventually they will become fiancé and then suddenly get married. And this is the good news. The kids will be the combination of the best of the two. This is what we're going to do.
I think the future of the digital word in the printed age is pretty much tied to what's happening in social media. If magazine editors can better connect with their readers on a daily basis through social media, they're ultimately going to make a much better printed product. So focusing on how to do that, I think, is key moving forward.
I think the future of print world will still continue to be strong. I think digital will have appropriate applications for certain magazines and certain audiences. I do feel that print will always be a platform for most major publishing houses, and from that the digital blogs and social media and the interactive websites will spring from there.
Well, it's more challenging for sure, but you know, I'm optimistic. I think there's, you know, we still have 300 million people in America, and there's a lot of them still prefer to hold things in their hands. And magazines are much more mobile, and you can share it with friends. And even if you saw an event, whether it was a sports event or whatever, you kind of like to relive it, and holding it in your hands allows you to do that a little longer.
Future for the printed word in the digital age. I think that the printed word will have a foot on both sides of the fence, the print side and the digital side, and I think that we're going to have to meet our readers where they want to be met. We talked about content being unbundled, and that's what that means, the idea of pulling content apart per se in order to give it the appropriate home and the appropriate delivery route for each individual reader. I also think that print will become more customized. I think that variable data will become more and more informative to how we plan and strategize our print magazines as well.
You know, I don't know exactly what the future of the printed world will be. I don't think we see it for our audience going away anytime soon. I think especially for magazines that are reaching a very targeted or niche audience, that will still be there for quite some time. But I think people are going to have to adapt, and as we've done, look into other mediums, the ways to deliver their content electronically where it makes sense. But I think if anybody really knows the answer to that, it's kind of the million-dollar question.
I prefer not to just think of it as the printed word. We're talking about the word, whether it's in print or in digital form. The word has a fantastic future in terms of storytelling, and a lot of that future will be in print.
I think as long as we can make magazines that are really immersive, that bring out the best of whatever topics we're writing about, that just suck the readers in and keep them completely engrossed for an hour or 2 hours, I think there's a rich future for the printed word in the digital age.
I think the future of the printed word in the digital age is very bright, but it has to be quality edit, and it has to be people who produce magazines with some passion to it. I think that's what we heard today. I think it is going to be more entrepreneurial, and it's going to be things of interest. And it will be magazines that are contemporary, not things that maybe should have died a long time ago.
I think it plays a significant role. It's going to play a role at newsstand, and it's going to play a role in print in general. It's still the entryway for magazines into the world, and it's the beginning point at which magazine media companies establish their brand.
Well, I think the whole digital thing has to find its way still. The way people now are stuck to their iPhones and Blackberries, I think we will laugh about that within 10 years. I think it will find its way besides print and digital will exist together. And I think the more digital that comes, the more we long for our really me time, the offline time. I think that way print is going to be even more important and more relaxing for us. But it will grow, it will be broader, there will be a lot of things together. So print will be the same for it has always been, or even be more for now.
Well, I don't think the printed word is going to go away, but I think that the printed word is just going to, instead of being almost for a long time the only source of information, and then for an even longer time the primary source of information, that it will be just one of many sources of information. So the notion that everyone's going to get up in the morning and read a paper and then later the day read a magazine in print, probably not so. And the printed word is probably going to get used relatively less in the future than it is now.
Well, being that's the theme of this conference, I'd say that everything that we're hearing is that there's a very good future for the printed word in the digital age. And if that specifically means traditional magazines versus just printed words in digital formats, and we probably shouldn't make that distinction, because the printed word basically means content. And what we're all about as magazine publishers is creating great content and distributing great content. And that content will always be sought after. And therefore, there'll always be a place for it. I think the distribution of that content will continue to evolve, and in a good way. So magazines are able to reach out in ways that didn't exist before by using the new technology, by using e-readers and tablets and iPhones and their own website, which is almost now seeming old. But all of these ways, and then mobile phones that are going to create new ways to interact with magazines. And all of that's going to contain words. So the printed word will remain very powerful. And I guess it's the job of the magazines as the arbiters of that content and the owners of it to continue to put the resources into creating great content and great storytelling that connects with consumers in a powerful way. And therefore, the consumers will always seek that out, and there'll always be a place for that type of content and the opportunity to build communities around it. And I think that's a great thing. That's what we're hearing over and over again from the people at this conference, is just how confident people feel about the industry. You know, magazines aren't going away. The printed word is still extremely important. And it's going to be imperative that publishers make sure that they're continuing to reach out properly, testing new ways, building communities around their words and their content, and inspiring people like they've always done. But now the channels are even greater to do it. And they can enhance it in a very rich way, digitally, from their magazine content, which just creates even stronger communities. So I think it's, you know, there's a bright future for the printed word.
In terms of the printed word, I think it's pretty difficult to say. I think the word certainly has a great future, whether it's printed or digital, a print reproduced word or a digitally reproduced word isn't really that important. It's only important to people because printed words have had a lot more success getting people to pay for them, getting consumers to pay for them, and digital words seem to be something that goes out free. So it's really not an important question necessarily for the culture or for consumers. It's really something that business people, I think, get a little too concerned about. So printed word, I have no idea. You know, I'm sure someday the idea of chopping down trees and mashing them up and just to put some words on them when you can do that on a computer is going to eventually seem pretty anachronistic. But the future of that is something probably beyond me.
At Highlights, we're really looking at a future that's very diverse. We're committed to print, we're committed to children, but we also see a great opportunity with the technologies available to extend the experience that kids and families have with the Highlights brand.